Good morning to all, and a very warm welcome to this webinar about World Bank procurement practices. Thank you all for participating. We have about 1 hour, and I'll make a short introduction on behalf of the Dutch Embassy before introducing the World Bank and give the floor to them. My name is Martijn Groen. I work at the Economic Department of the Dutch Embassy in Bogota. I deal with trade promotion in general, circular economy, coal transition, energy transition, and I'm also in contact with the IFIs, the international financial institutions, such as the World Bank here in Colombia. And a big thank you to Holland House for co-organizing this webinar. Natalia, Efraim, Jan-Willem, thank you very much. And I think the participants know this. The embassy is here to assist you in B2G related issues, business to government, and Holland House is a great platform to help Dutch businesses with B2B related issues. Now, in this call, we have about 15 Dutch companies present, and the goal of this session is to connect the representatives of the Dutch businesses with the World Bank and inform the Dutch companies about the World Bank procurement. Because we believe a well-informed Dutch private sector will benefit the competitiveness of Colombian World Bank financed tenders. And the Dutch private sector is very present in Colombia and has a lot to offer in many sectors, such as agri-food, water, life sciences, chemicals. And I just want to give you a few facts, 3 facts about the Dutch-Colombian economic relations. So the Netherlands is the 3rd largest investor in Colombia, right after the United States and Spain. And the Netherlands provided last year at least around 15% of the total foreign direct investments in Colombia. The Netherlands is the largest importer in the European Union of Colombian goods, and around 27% of all Colombian exports to the European Union first goes to the Netherlands. And lastly, the Dutch export to Colombia in 2021 was 627 million euros. That's around 10% of the European Union exports to Colombia. Now, about the World Bank, the Netherlands worldwide works closely with the bank back in The Hague, in Washington, and here in Colombia. And I believe the Netherlands is steadily in the top 15 of World Bank contributors, and we're very proud to organize this session with the World Bank. And as a founding member of the World Bank, the Netherlands, of course, supports all the World Bank's efforts in sustainability and sustainable development. And I have the pleasure of presenting here our 2 World Bank specialists who will be doing the presentation for you. We have Leonardo Escandon, he is Operations Officer Colombia for the World Bank. And we have Francisco Rodriguez, a World Bank Senior Procurement Specialist for Latin America and the Caribbean. And he actually was in Colombia about 2 weeks ago. And of course, I want to thank you in advance for doing this business outreach. We really appreciate it. And we look forward to your presentation about the bank's procurement framework, the Colombia portfolio. You have some insights into the Netherlands-based suppliers, and of course, how to identify contract opportunities. The last huishoudelijke mededeling, a general notice, the World Bank presentation will be about 25 minutes, and afterwards there's space for questions. So to all participants, you can write your questions in the chat, and Francisco and Leonardo will try to answer them for you. Only they can see the questions, but they will answer the questions after the presentation. So feel free to pose any questions you have in the chat. So without any further delay, I'll give the floor to you, Leonardo.
Thank you, Martin, and thank you everyone at the Holland House, at the Dutch Embassy in Colombia. My name is Leonardo Escandona. I'm the Operations Officer for the Colombia Country Office. I'm a Colombian national based in Bogota. I've been quite familiar for over a decade with the program that the bank has here. and the engagement that we have developed with this government. So I'm going to start trying to give you sort of like a snapshot of what the World Bank program looks like in this country and the way it has evolved over the last few years. And then Francisco will get more deeply into the procurement related issues. So to start with, I just wanted to give you first a sort of like the background of the origins of the World Bank as an institution. You can go to the next slide, please. And just to go back in history and tell you where we started as an institution around 1944 with a Bretton Woods conference in which only 43 countries joined, most of them with the idea to rebuild Europe post-war. And then the IMF also came into this initiative. And the thing I wanted to highlight from this history is that Colombia in Latin America was actually the first country to join in 1946 with the World Bank Group. Now, next please. If we go back in time, back then the World Bank started just as one single institution to promote development in middle-income countries, but over history, it actually developed into a series of agencies that was not only the World Bank. If you can go to the next, please. This is exactly what I was referring to, that the World Bank is just the collective name of what now is a series of institutions, of agencies that conform the World Bank Group. In Colombia in particular, there is the presence of three of these institutions: the IBRD, which is what we call here the World Bank Group, the World Bank, the International Finance Corporation, which has a pretty large presence in Colombia as well, and I mean, the MIGA, which is the risk investment agency part of the World Bank Group. So just to let you know that what is understood as a group is actually a conglomeration of agencies put together. Next, please. Okay, so I know the slides are in Spanish, but I know that that's not an issue for any of you. So I'll continue the presentation in English. The way that the World Bank operates in a country like Colombia is that we establish what we call a country partnership strategy. This is ideally aligned with the national development plan of a country and aligned with the political cycle of that country. So this is in particular a transition year for us because we're coming to an election period for a new administration in about 2 months' time, which will be sitting in office around August of this year, with a new president, a new team that we'll have to work with. And with that team, we will develop a new country partnership strategy, which covers pretty much the next presidential term over the next 4 to 5 years until 2026. So just to give you an idea that we sit together and we listen in consultations, what are the areas where they expect that the bank can engage and support according to their different priorities over the next few years. So we're pretty much subject to what those priorities are and in which areas the bank can support the government in. In that sense, we always put together a closing report that sort of like makes an assessment of the different objectives that we've tried to support and if those have been reached or not. And there's also a midpoint report that we do more or less halfway through the administration. So that is sort of like our navigation chart in terms of our support to a country is to use this strategy. And within that strategy, we obviously put together the different forms of support like loans, analytical services, convening services, and the different ways that the bank supports. Next, please. Okay, so just to give you an idea how that strategy looked for us throughout the period of through 2021, that started in 2016. It actually has extended for one more year because of the pandemic. All strategies bank-wide came to a standstill because there was no way to make meaningful consultations or engagement with governments when obviously there was a pandemic happening throughout the world. So what we came to agree with the government back in 2016 was that we found three main pillars that we wanted to support. One was territorial development, to include social and mobility, and to support productivity and fiscal sustainability. Back then, the government was very keen that any operation that we put together trying to support any of these three pillars would have one cross-cutting theme for any operation, which was the construction of peace. So we try to include this theme throughout any operation that we put together. Next, please. Okay, now I'm going to tell you a bit about within this strategy. As I told you, one of the main services is the financial services, which includes the loans. And within that loans, we have three categories that we have been implementing in Colombia. One is the investment loans, which is pretty much resources that are destined to support specific investment in different areas, such as education, health, water, infrastructure, transport. Going back in history, to give you an idea, in Colombia, the average of loans for investment throughout this strategy period since 2016 is around 5 new loans per year. We use in the bank what we call the fiscal year, which starts in July 1st, runs through June 30th of the next year. So more or less 5 new approvals per fiscal year, with an average approval of around 150 to 170 million per loan. As I mentioned, this is in different sectors like the ones that I just mentioned. Now, the second block that you see here that's called the development policy loan is really important, in particular for Colombia. This government has been very keen to use this instrument because these are basically large loans that come to support reforms and policy financing. So basically they fit into the nation's budget, and these are fast dispersing and large operations of, in Colombia, around 500 to 700 million each. So in summary, this creates a scenario that we, during the last 6 years, have been lending to Colombia on average around $1 billion per year, with around $800 million in disbursements per year. And now the distinction here that's important is that the government of Colombia's preference for development policy financing has been so strong that it's on around 85 to 15 ratio over the last 6 years. If they need $1 billion, 850 more or less have been in the form of development policy financing rather than investment. Now, the third one that you see down here, that is called P4R, Program for Results, is sort of a kind of new experience for Colombia since 2018, with the first approval of one of these type of loans, which is basically resources that feed into an ongoing program of the government. In this case, we started out with a program on health, and this $150 million loan came in to feed this ongoing program. It has been quite a successful experience thus far, to the point that last Thursday, the second program for results loan ever in Colombia was approved by the board in the bank for $80 million for an education program that's already going on in the country. So just to summarize, these are the three types of loans that the bank offers and that under which we operate in Colombia. Next, please. This goes back to what I was telling you, and more or less what has been the tendency for commitments and disbursements over the last 12 years. So what you see in the blue bars are this development policy financing I was telling you. Those are resources that come to feed into the nation's budget for reforms. And as you see, these are most of the lending for every year, pretty much. And the part that you see in red are the portion of resources that go into investment loans. That is to support initiatives in different sectors like the ones I mentioned. So just to highlight how strong the demand has been for development policy financing in particular over the last 12 years. Next, please. Okay, so in the bank, we are divided by what we call global practices. And this pie chart just gives you an idea of how these loans that we have in the Colombia portfolio are divided by the different global practices that we have. So if we have human development, for instance, which is the red portion, we have 470 million in loans under that global practice. Obviously, that global practice can include 3 to 4 loans that are active right now. For instance, for sustainable development, which is the green portion, there's 600+ million that obviously includes another portion of our loans and so on. So just to give you that idea of how we work within the bank, how we're organized by sort of sectors. Along with the lending services, that is the 3 types of loans I mentioned, it's important to also say that the bank has been pretty strong on growing its portfolio of knowledge services. That is a wide range of activities that are related to analytical studies that in most of the times complement these financial services. So on average for Colombia, there's about 25 deliveries per fiscal year of this type of services. They range from impact evaluations to rapid assessments to technical assistance. All of this list is included there, and most of the times they are the analytical underpinnings of these loans. Next, please. Okay, as I mentioned, Colombia is quite an important client, not only in the region, but bank-wide. And this graph here shows you that in terms of level of debt, that is the resources that are loaned to the governments and in what way we rank there. We are the 6th largest country in terms of debt, behind in the region Mexico and Brazil. But this place in the top 10 has been maintained for Colombia over the last easily 10 years. So just to mention that, the World Bank Group is considered here quite an important partner for the government to support its initiatives for development. Next, please. Okay, over the last 2 years, there's been a particular rise in terms of lending because of the pandemic and because of the demand from government for the bank to respond to different channels of collaboration. Obviously, one important one is the development policy financing option, which, as you see here, is the first one. That was a loan that was approved just 3 months after the pandemic was declared for 700 million. That loan is fully dispersed. It basically went into response for the COVID-19 crisis. And the same has happened with the rest of the loans. So over the last 2 years, we have actually approved quite a bit more of resources than in previous years, precisely because of the response to the demand generated by the pandemic. And the same has been the story with the knowledge services, because the government has demanded from the bank more help in terms of the review of public finances, equity studies, and so many more that I could mention. Next, please. Okay, so as I mentioned here, I've been very general about the different types of services that we have as a bank anywhere in the country, but now I wanted to mention a couple of the main projects that we have active right now in the portfolio. Next, please. One of them is an engagement with the education sector that's been going on for about 10 years in response to an institution that basically provides loans to students for access to higher education institutions. So the one that is active right now is a combination of a parent loan with an additional financing approved in 2018, which totals about 360 million, and it's been quite a successful experience for the bank, so much that it goes back to around 2012 already. But just to give you an idea that that's one of the key engagements that are active right now within the portfolio. And to mention also that these are part of what we call investment loans, and that we are trying to also promote for the next few years, so that we start moving a bit away from so much development policy financing to more investment policy financing, such as this initiative on education. Next, please. Another one that I wanted to mention was the one that I told you about a few minutes ago, the first program for results type of loan in Colombia on health, which, as I told you, this type of loan feeds into an ongoing program of the government. This is 150 million that uses emerging funds like the GCFF for 37 additional million approved about 2 years ago, which has been quite a successful story thus far. Next, please. I wanted to mention those two, but obviously there's more detail about the rest of the investment loans. This is very quick, considering the long history that we have with this country, and the type of engagement we've had could, we could go a lot further into this, but it was just as well as to give you a snapshot of what we've been doing here and what the program looks like as of 2022 with this country. So again, we appreciate the interest that you have to come close to the bank and try to see what the program looks like in this country. And thanks again. And now we'll give the floor to my colleague, Francisco Rodriguez, for the procurement presentation. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Leonardo. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I will make a short presentation, and which is right here. All right, let's start with it. So I am Francisco Rodriguez, Senior Procurement Specialist of the World Bank. I am the procurement coordinator for Mexico and Colombia, but I am also working in different initiatives related to procurement in the region and the global level. In particular, I am co-leading the Green Procurement Community of Practice of the World Bank. That is a global initiative, but I am also the focal point for sustainable procurement and data analytics in procurement for the Latin America and the Caribbean region. All those areas are new areas of work for us, just some logical answer to what is happening in procurement in the world. Today, my presentation will be focused on World Bank's procurement framework, reflection after 5 years of implementation, some very recent new feature, which is the strengthening of the environmental and social risk management, then introduction to the World Bank in the operating model, portfolio, information on projects and procurements, identifying opportunities and how to bid, and conclusions. This presentation will be useful for you, not only for Colombia, but for the whole world. It's focused for your country, for the Netherlands. So I hope you will find it useful for your work. First of all, in 2016, the World Bank, our board, approved a new set of policies for procurement, the new policy of the World Bank in procurement, which included the procurement regulations that are applicable for our clients, for our projects, for our investment lending projects. Before these regulations, and after an extensive process of consultations with our clients, with the private sector, with governments, with the social institutions, organizations, we came up with a solution, because before we had a set of procurement rules that were based on one size fits all, limited options, very prescriptive. Fraud and corruption was seen as a primary challenge. We had a mix of capacity of clients, but we were trying to apply the same solution for all of them. Arms-led approach to markets, and primary focus was on selection phase. Once we have the regulations, the spirit of the new regulations of 2016, where had a new focus on results, fit for purpose approach as enabler of value for money, flexible and risk-based decision-making, early proactive market engagement. This is completely new. Capacity building, with a focus on capacity building on our clients. An approach that was more dynamic, risk management, and enhanced integrity, fairness, and transparency. And finally, which is really important, increased focus on contract management. This is what is written in the regulations, but what it means in terms of practice, that is the most important part of this. First of all, the new approach was modern, because it introduced modern procurement practices that are a result of driven and support-based value for money. And for you that have worked in Europe, our new regulations are more similar to the European Union procurement regulations. So it is more familiar for you, this new approach that it was the previous approach that we had, our previous policies. Second, a very important focus in integrity, promoting fairness, transparency, and integrity with a strong focus on preventing fraud and corruption. Proportional, in terms that we are encouraging tailored procurement approaches that are proportional to the size, scope, complexity, and value of the project. It's not the same thing to prepare a metro, like the Metro de Bogota project that we are financing, that preparing bidding process for a IT system, or for the construction of roads, or a water plant. So we need to think in a different way. We need to think in the particularities of each procurement to adapt and find the best option, which is fit for purpose, providing the flexibility and choice in designing procurement strategies that fit the unique characteristic of each project. No a single one solution for everything. Fit for purpose is key. Principles-based, this is super important, which supports the ability to respond quickly to emerging needs by adopting innovative technologies and solutions. We switch from equivalence to principles-based approach. If a country, I'm not going to mention any country in particular, if a country is doing some procurement activities that are acceptable for us, we can finance them if they are acceptable based on principles, not equivalent, because before the regulations, we had this equivalent vision. And if the things that the client were doing were not exactly as our procedures, it was not acceptable. So it was a huge change for example, for PPP's contracts, for advanced contracting, etc. Procurement has a strategic role in fostering new technologies and innovative solutions. Before the regulations, innovation was so difficult. Every single time that we need to make something different, we have to go for approvals, even of the board, of the bank's board. And it was impossible not impossible, because I did innovation myself with some clients, but it was really difficult. Now it's different. If it makes sense, we can innovate. We can find innovative solutions in the projects that we have. Policy platform, our regulations, because now we include more options, more alternatives. We have a broader policy platform of flexible tools, techniques, and approaches that help access market innovation and work with leading edge suppliers. Market engagement, this is something new. Talking with the market was almost impossible before the regulations. And some of our clients didn't want to approach the market because they think that it was perceived as corruption. Now we have clear procedures to engage the market as early as possible, if it makes sense, to know better solutions, better technological solutions, innovation, etc. Cross-sectoral application, innovation occurs across sector, from sustainable infrastructure to efficient, inclusive, and transparent government. And this is super important. As I mentioned in the beginning, I'm working in green procurement and sustainable procurement. And procurement is a vehicle to better development, to achieve better development objectives in terms of green procurement, in terms of social impact, economic impact. Everything is changing for procurement. It's not a single solution anymore. We are looking to how to impact different areas of the public investment. And we have some very good results in the 5 years of implementation. First of all, in terms of efficiency, we reduce the time that take to make procurement decisions inside the bank, and it affected very positively the ability of our clients to implement projects. Fairness, we have a more efficient handle of complaints, increasing the market confidence. Value for money, We have a huge impact in value for money of our operations in terms of increased competition, increased number of bidders, increase the use of value for money with features like request for proposal, rated criteria, and the use of normally low bids and proposals. But we have been working also really hard in capacity building. We have a higher overall improvements in challenging environments such as fragile countries, including increased foreign participation. And finally, this principle-based approach is giving us so much flexibility. We can finance contracts that because are consistent with our principles, we can accept very quickly. So it has been a huge change for us. We have increased the use of value for money features, like as I mentioned, request for proposals, rated criteria, and life cycle cost evaluation, which is something that was really hard to use. And in terms of life cycle cost evaluation, it has been currently, since last year, it is applicable and required for all procurement of information systems and plant and equipment. This is not an alternative. We are using it because it makes sense, because it is applicable. So one of those features of the regulation that we are using all around the world is the use of life cycle cost. Borrowers have the option to apply life cycle cost evaluation to other procurement types and approaches if they want. And recently we have included the life cycle cost over a specific period, or adjustment for functional guarantees, or inherent in contracts that include operations maintenance, such as design, build, and operation. Very similar to European procurement rules. Another special feature of our regulations is the use of abnormally low bids, something that we didn't have the base for using in our previous regulations. Now we are using it when it makes sense in an appropriate way. I'm going to go into details of alternative low bids. All right. And something that is very recent is the introduction of environmental and social elements in the procurement of the bank. That is an answer to what is happening in the world, and is focused in a specific risks like resettlement, labor force influx, community health and safety, occupational accidents, environmental protection, sexual exploitation and abuse, and sexual harassment. All our standard procurement documents, pre-qualification documents, bidding documents, and contracts include specific clauses related to each one of these risks. And very recently, we have included in our contracts these specific features that are here in orange. Specification and key procurement indicators, declaration of environmental and social past performance. This is key. If there is a bidder with a past bad performance in environmental and social, these firms will not be accepted in our bidding processes. So we have now these features in our bidding processes, which is really important to assure that we are aligned with our objectives. There is also the inclusion of a contractor's code of conduct in the contracts. An environmental and social expert should be part of the contractors' teams. Environmental and social reporting, environmental and social performance security included in our contracts. Contractors should update the procedures related to environmental and social very continuously. Contract variation should address environmental and social risk. And the engineer, the supervisor, should oversee the implementation of this specific feature. And the contracts now also include contractual remedies when in case of no compliance of these environmental and social elements. And finally, yes?
Sorry to interrupt you. We have about 15 minutes left. May I propose we would go a bit further in the presentation to the Dutch part and then identifying business opportunities for the company?
That's where I was going right now. I just jumped the gender elements, very detailed, but I'm not going to talk about that. The World Bank goals are end extreme poverty and promote shared prosperity. We have a total of 220 billion in commitments in fiscal year 22. The IPFs, we have 1,695 projects all around the world in 144 countries. The principal sectors that we are financing are, first of all, water and sanitation and waste management, transportation, energy and extractives, health, agriculture, fishing and forestry, education, industry, trade and services, social protection, and others. And those projects are distributed, as you can see in this map, all around the world. Our principal clients are in Sub-Saharan Africa with 38% of our contracts. Then South Asia with 19%, East Asia and the Pacific and Europe and Central Asia with 13%. Then Latin America and the Caribbean with 11%, and Middle East and North Africa with 6%. Our top procurement borrowers are India with 14.15% of our of the contracts, China, Pakistan, Poland, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Brazil is the first client in our region, Turkey, Nigeria, and Ukraine. And in the period between fiscal year 17 and 21, our top 10 supplier countries, you can see the list here. China is the first one, India, Turkey, etc. And the Netherlands are in the position number 21 with 0.74%, but representing $512 million. In consulting services, here is the list. India is the first one for different considerations, and the Netherlands are number 15 with 132 millions. And in terms of goods, the Netherlands is in the position number 6 with 315 millions. The contracts that are our by category for firms based in the Netherlands in this period are for 350 million for goods, consultant services 133 million, 59 million for works, and 5 million for non-consultant services. And the top suppliers of the Netherlands are in this list. Pfizer is the first one. I don't have the details of the contract with me right now, but I can understand why Pfizer is the first one right now in the middle of the pandemic. Then Van Oord Dredgings and Marine Contractors is the second one. La Fondation Cordite number 3, etc. You will be able to see the list in this in the presentation that we will share with you. In terms of consultant services, the first one is La Fondation Cordite with 17.73% of the contracts in consulting services. And in goods supplier and in goods, the first one is Pfizer, followed by Philips Medical, Damon, Shipyards, Gordonsham, etc. Where are these contracts distributed? First of all, the principal region for contracts is South Asia region, followed by Europe and Central Asia, followed by Sub-Saharan Africa, then followed by East Asia and the Pacific, and finally Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, where you can find opportunities on how to bid in projects of the World Bank. You will find this information in the presentation, first of all, in our website, in procurement notices that are published in the UN Development Business webpage, in the Finance Data Reporting Interface. There is also a procurement app that you can download to your cell phone, and then you can see there all the business opportunities, and you can follow who is getting the contracts. So my recommendation, please download this app to your cell phone. But also you can find information in the country partnership framework, something that Leonardo mentioned, in the monthly operational summary, which is a publication of the bank when you can see all the projects that are coming, in the project documents, And in the procurement plans, there is a platform where you can see all the procurement plans of our projects all around the world. If you want to bid in our projects, this is a sequence of steps that you can follow. First of all, identify the project of interest, determine in the country and the sector interest, review the CPF. You can access all the CPF in this link. Overview the strategy and the CPF. Then you can go to follow the procurement plans to identify the plan and procurement and timing under the project. You can access all these procurement plans in these links. You can browse by country, by projects, by type of procurement, and by type of notices as well. Then you can view the procurement notices by country. Specific notices for each one of the procurement activities. Again, you can access these opportunities by this link, selecting the procurement tab. You can browse by country and by sector, and you can see the full list of notices of procurement activities that are ongoing. You can also subscribe to the procurement notices email alerts using this link that you can see here. And then once you're ready, once you have identified an activity that you are interested in, the first recommendation is that you attend a pre-proposal briefing, if that alternative is indicated in the bidding documents. Please fully address all the requirements. If you really want to get the contract, please full address all the requirements, all the documentation, all the technical specification, etc. Emphasize your methodology for delivery, innovate if you can, propose a strong project manager and experienced experts, cite relevant technical and regional experience similar to the project, involving country partners if possible, and consider joint ventures if possible. Don't deviate from the standard bidding documents for terms and conditions or qualifications can lead, because conditions or qualifications can lead to rejection. When preparing a proposal, if you have any doubt, get an official clarification. If any provision of the bidding document is unclear, seek clarification from the purchasing agency. Carefully review all the qualification and evaluation criteria and submit a professional proposal. And don't forget, the bank is here to support you in case you feel that you are not being treated in a fair way. You can present complaints in the bank if you wish to do that. So that was the presentation. You will find some conclusions here, and I'm leaving all the links where you can find more information to the procurement rules and procedures in the last slide of the presentation. This is the procurement team. Our Chief Procurement Officer is Enzo de Laurentiis. Our procurement manager for the Latin America and the Caribbean is Diomedes Berroa, and you can find all the information in the final stage. And that's it by my side.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Francisco and Leonardo, of course. Very interesting, and I especially appreciated the last part. I see we have a few questions open in the chat, and I encourage everybody, all the companies present, to post their questions in the chat so we can use the last minutes to go into those details. Perhaps Francisco, and I can ask you to answer some of the questions by Manuel.
Perfect. I will try.
Do you want to read them out and then answer verbally?
Okay, they are really long. I'm trying to catch up. Okay, let's start by this one. I'll try to do my best. Will a private Colombian company be able to apply for an investment loan if the project will have a positive social impact, or it is just for government projects? That was an easy one. Leonardo, I will answer this one. Credits are only for government agencies. We have something different, which are trust fund, and Leonardo, please correct me if I'm wrong. We have trust fund, and some NGOs can implement projects, but if only applies if the government has approved that kind of operation. So Leonardo, do you want to include something else?
Yes, Francisco, thanks. I actually went ahead and answered this one written while you were presenting. And yes, you're right, just to be more exact, the channel through which a request for an investment loan becomes an actual operation with the bank is through the Ministry of Finance and the Department of National Planning. It obviously can include sector ministries and even sometimes components that may involve private sector, but the actual request always is channeled through the Ministry of Finance. And as Francisco mentioned, there are some other avenues of engagement like the trust funds. And this is something that in Colombia, it has become less of a practice because as it moved to a higher rank within as a middle income country, we are less of an eligible country to be the recipient of non-reimbursable resources. So these are less and less frequent within the country portfolio, and they are also channeled through the ministries.
Thank you, Leonardo. Okay, we have a series of questions from Manuel Suarez. First of all, can we get an idea of the investments infrastructure that the World Bank is planning to do in the region during 2022? Okay, please follow the links of the last slides of the presentation. We will share the presentation with you. There was a question related to the recording. I understand that the recording will be shared as well. In these links, you can find all the active procurement activities in UNDP Online or in the portal of the World Bank. But you can see at the same time what projects are under preparation. And I'm going to answer as one of the questions at the same time, of the other question at the same time, and you can contact the bank. Each one of the projects that are under preparation has a contact person related to that project, and you can contact this person asking what kind of procurement activities are going to be included, and you can start to have information of the projects, as much information as possible. Everything is transparent, so you will have access to all the information that is public and all the information that we have in the preparation. So you can contact these people for information, these persons for this specific person for information. Can we get a point of contact of the procurement specialist for each country in Latin America and the Caribbean? That is a very good question. I don't know. I know that it was in some place. Let me find that information and I will say and I will share it with Marjan and he can send you this link. So sorry by not having that specific answer. For Colombia, you can contact me. For Mexico, you can contact me. All World Bank contracts are based in US law? No. That is a very good question. Contracts are based in the law of the country. The contract is based in the law of the country, but the relations between the contractor and the owner of the contract are regulated by the contract. So no use law in this case. During tender opportunities, can we use subcontractors' CVs as long as the company as they comply with tender requirements? It depends of the definition of the bidding document of the request for proposal, but there are specific and comprehensive descriptions and definitions about the use of subcontractors and how they will be qualified as part of the bidding process. So I'll use these specific the definitions. And I think those are all the questions. Does the World Bank also work with market consultation? We engage with the market for specific cases. For example, for IT, there was an extra consultation from IT companies, so we engage with them. But you can also use the director of the bank of your respective country. You can use as well the embassies. You can use Marjan if you have, I guess you can, sorry. You can use also the embassies to try to contact us. And when we have these specific contracts, metros or water plants, we try and get to engage the market through our clients. And I think those are all the questions that we have right now.
Thank you. I see there's a question about the minimum ticket size for an investment loan by Brutus Kersenmakers. Francisco, could you say something about that?
I guess it is related to the size of the loans.
Yeah.
Okay, so we don't have a minimum, is what I understand, but we don't have small projects. I think that is a definition of each one of the countries and the strategy, but probably Leonardo, you can say a little bit more.
Yes, Francisco, there's not a standard that works band-wide in terms of a guideline for a minimum. It's more subject to the dialogue and the sort of like the agreements with each country's government. In the case of Colombia, we used to do what we call the LIL, Learning Investment Loans, which could go as low as 20 to 30 million. But the preference of both the government and the bank for Colombia over the last 5 to 7 years has been to go up. And you rarely find any loan now that's below 60 or 70 million. All of them will be above that.
All right. I think there's still one question open about market consultations.
Yeah, I answered that question.
Okay. And a question from my side, this pre-proposal briefing, is that done by the World Bank or by the Colombian purchasing agency?
Pre-proposal, like pre-qualification. If it is pre-qualification, it's done by the client. We don't get involved in the evaluation in any stage of the procurement process, unless there is something in place that we call HAZE, which is hands extended implementation support. We don't evaluate, but we are very close to the client in the process of evaluation. That is for a specific project, for a specific countries. We don't have HAZE in Colombia. All
right. Thank you very much. We're 2 minutes over time, and as we're Dutch, we don't like that. But I think you have answered all the questions, and I don't see anyone typing. But one of my takeaways is that the bank is very open to answer questions to companies in the very early phase of these procurements, and that's very good for us to know, for the companies to know. So for all participants, we will share the presentation and the contact details and also the links that Francisco mentioned in his presentation to all of you, so you can revise them and you can find the contact details and get in touch with the people from the bank, the procurement officers. So we really appreciate that. I think we should come to a closing then, and I want to thank Francisco and Leonardo, of course, for your presentation. Thank you very much for being open, for doing this business outreach. Very much appreciated. Thank you to Holland House, of course, for organizing this session in the background. Thank you very much. And thank you to all attendees, and please don't hesitate to get in touch with either us, the embassy, or Holland House, or of course the World Bank for any further questions. And with that, we close the meeting, and I thank you all for your participation.
Thanks a lot for the invitation, and thanks, Leonardo and Lucian. Thank you.
Thank you, Francisco, and everyone. Have a great day.
All right.